Otherwise, let's go ahead and get settled now into our meditation time. And as I'm sure most of us recognize, it's a pretty rare thing that we human beings have this time. Well, we don't have to do this and we don't have to do that. We have our cell phones all the way off. There's no screen in front of us. And it doesn't mean that all of our problems have been resolved. It just means that for this period of time that we're here together doing this meditation, it's really not my responsibility. I might feel inclined to do something when I get home, but right now is not the time. And that's a powerful reflection, right? We've given ourselves this period of time where we're not obligated to deal with our duties and responsibilities except to get to know our own mind. So settling into a posture that makes sense for you, where you feel relatively still, relatively relaxed and upright. Just do the best you can. And we forgive ourselves for being an imperfect human being. So any remorse, any yucky feeling that might be reverberating in our mind and heart now, we want to normalize that. Oh yeah, of course there might be some unfinished business that I'm feeling right now, of course. Why would I think I would have handled everything perfectly in the past? And why would I think that other people in my lives would have handled everything perfectly? Of course not. We humans make mistakes. We act out of greed. We act out of aversion and fear at times. We push each other's buttons, cause each other harm. And I understand that. And as best I can, I forgive myself and I forgive others. And just feel the lightening, not having to be the person holding resentment as much. Not having to be the person seeking revenge, trying to get even, but exploring the possibility of non-remorse, putting it all down. And already we can begin to feel some degree of settledness or calm. And the first instruction this morning, we'll be doing more of a concentration practice, is we're going to ask ourselves to sustain present moment awareness. So practicing a non-distractedness. But initially, we won't use a meditative anchor. Just in your own experience, sense what it is to be present, to be recognizing the present moment, recognizing that it's like this is being known, and to experiment in terms of sustaining present moment awareness. And don't be afraid of thoughts. It's not about trying to suppress thinking. So if there are thoughts that are coming and going, just recognizing that now thoughts are being known. Thinking is like this, here in the present moment, being known. What is the experience of sustaining present moment awareness? Getting clear about that. and what gets in the way of that sustaining of present moment awareness. One well-known teacher, Ajahn Brahm, he'd have his students train their mind to do this initial practice for an hour before moving on to other meditative instructions. This sustaining present moment awareness without the use of an anchor, just being interested in the present moment. And in a sense, it's the present moment itself that is the anchor, the meditative anchor. And be willing to begin again and again. No need to get frustrated if the mind gets distracted, lost in thought. Soon as you recognize having been lost in thought, recognize that that's the next moment of being aware of the present moment. Having been lost in thought is like this. So we're practicing really not forgetting the present moment. And it's a very specific kind of effort. It's the effort to be interested in the present moment. That this experience is being known. So in a sense, we're aware of what the conscious mind is knowing and doing without judging. And even if you feel a little self-conscious, just continue to keep recognizing the present moment. No need to judge, no need to control or try to make something happen. And when you feel like you have some momentum with the sustaining of present moment awareness, the next instruction you can give yourself is sustained silent meditation, sustained silent present moment awareness. It's not about suppressing directly the thinking, but it's really more about being interested in the silence or the space between the thoughts. So, in a sense, we're learning to notice the space of the mind, the space of the heart, independent of the thoughts that come and go. And we're keeping that subtle experience, the space of the mind, the space of the heart, the silent space of the heart. We're keeping that in mind. So, in a sense, that's our meditation object, the sense of silence or stillness. And again, just do the best you can. Be willing to begin again and again. Sustained, silent, present moment awareness. And we're renouncing the identification with thoughts, the mind being dependent on thoughts. Thoughts probably are still going to be there. Let them be there in the background. And learn how to be interested in the subtle sense of silent space that's here and now. And again, we have to learn the difficult lesson of not trying to stop our thinking simply because it doesn't work. What does seem to help is to learn how to be interested in what is subtle, which is the silent sense of space here, like the space of our own heart and mind. Not the activity of thinking or the activity of feeling the body or the activity of hearing the sounds in the room. But we're learning to sense the silent space of the present moment. And it takes some willingness to be interested in something subtle. But the mind can develop the skill. It really helps the heart and mind to settle down and begin to experience some more calm. There's a pleasantness in allowing things to get more simple. A kind of energetic healing begins to happen. And you can continue with this, but if you feel like working with another instruction, it could be sustained, silent, focused, present moment awareness. So you might take up the singular experience of feeling the breath coming in and going out at the nostrils, or feeling the rising and falling of the abdomen with the breath. But it could also be particular touch points that you feel in your body, or the whole body sitting. In this practice, we're renouncing the mind's identification with the diversity of our experience. We're letting everything happen in the background and choosing to keep the meditation object in the foreground of our attention. So a classic one would be just to be feeling the breath at the nostrils, especially the tip of the nostrils. Again, this is a concentration practice, and we're learning to be interested in just one simple aspect of our experience to the exclusion of everything else. And again, it's about being interested in the meditation object, not trying to get rid of everything else. Keeping it in mind. But then we have this sustained, silent, focused, present moment awareness. You just do the best you can. It's all about learning. And see if you can learn that having an exclusive meditation object doesn't require the body or the mind to become tight. It all happens best if everything remains relaxed. And what really supports the deepening of samadhi, this concentrated, unified, settled quality of the heart and mind, what really helps is to sense the inner pleasure of the heart becoming more simple, more secluded, more peaceful, more calm. To have that felt sense right in the forefront of our attention. It's not about being greedy. It's just about noticing the truth of the way it is in the heart and mind. And for many of us, we have to learn how to be aware of the subtle quality of calm, tranquility, settledness, the sense of being gathered or collected. These, of course, are the different flavors of what we call samadhi. It's really an essential skill for being a healthy, wise, and kind human being. We want to value and appreciate this gathered, settled, calm presence. Our world would be a different place if we all lived from this place. Our families would be different, our friendships would be different. Take a little time. It's nice to move a little more slowly after a sitting period. Just appreciate whatever settledness has come our way, not to want to lose it immediately. So big welcome to all of you online and all of those in the room. It's nice to be together on Sunday morning. Maybe a couple announcements before we get started. We have a visiting teacher here, Tuare Sala.
Someone is concerned about someone sneaking in here and wants to make an announcement for that person. Ask God.
You can talk to that person if you want.
It is though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just so folks know, we have a policy in the building, as much as possible. It's kind of our new world that if you have any sort of respiratory symptoms, like sneezing, coughing, or whatever, even if you think it's allergies, to wear a mask, and we have masks in the lobby. And that's just the way we're kind of trying to move forward in this world, where a lot of people in the community are compromised and need to be careful, but want to be here in person. So anyway, I was just going to mention we have a visiting teacher in town. She's leading BIPOC retreat out at our retreat center, but we'll give a public talk on Friday night, I think at 7 o'clock, both online and in person. And then Tuare will do a day-long retreat on Saturday, both online and in person. So feel free to join in for those. The following Saturday, Stacy McClendon, one of our longtime teachers, will be offering an introduction to mindfulness workshop, and that's 9 to 1 p.m. on Saturday the 20th. And then I'll be offering a day-long retreat on the 27th of July. So just some things coming up, in case that makes sense. All of those are both in person here at the City Center in Minneapolis and also online. And I thought tonight, or today rather, I'd continue what I started last Sunday, discussion about tranquility. And as I said at the end of the guided meditation, even though you may or I may be the most restless person in the world, I mean, somebody's got to be the most, restless person in the world. But whoever we are, however we are energetically, with our personalities and our life situation, we can still value calm and moving in the direction of calm, as opposed to moving in the direction of more restlessness, more agitation. And it's, in Buddhist practice, it's not the end. Like a lot of times people might superficially think that what the Buddha was all about is telling people to be calm, like chill out, be calm. But it's really in the service of becoming wise and kind. Because the way learning happens, and you can just see this for yourselves, the way learning happens for us is when we're settled, right, then all of the activities of our mind and the world around us that is arising from being unsettled, agitated, they'd stand out. When we're settled, we really notice how unsettled everything is around us. Now, if we're really settled, we don't get irritated at all of that activity, but we see it more clearly. You know how it is, like if you've been in a peaceful place and then you walk into the Mall of America or a bar or wherever, a family gathering, and it's not about putting those places down. It's just about noticing the activity as activity and noticing what gets triggered in our own body and mind and seeing it for what it is. Because when we see ourselves getting activated, however we might, or triggered, however we might get triggered, right, we can see that activation is just what it is. We don't have to take it so personally. But if we're already agitated, upset, restless, whatever, and somebody triggers, activates us in some way, we're just not going to see it as clearly. We'll tend to take it personally and just act on it, whatever that, emotion or pattern that's gotten triggered. So moving through life being settled means we're moving through life being really sensitive. We sense, we feel, we notice, we learn. And you'll see this. I mean, it's like when the Olympics get shown next, or the next time you watch, people who are an amazing athlete or an amazing artist, a lot of those people who are hyper competent have learned, it's not even spiritual, it's just like pragmatic. Like you're settled. And even when, not always, but even a lot of the wildlife we observe, they might have a burst of activity and then they're settled. And it's just interesting, part of it is just even our economy thrives, takes advantage of how the marketers, people who develop products and things that are being sold, they know, it's useful to be agitated. Like even stores and stuff, they know exactly what kind of music to play. They don't want you to be calm, right? They want you to be agitated. We tend to, I'm agitated, maybe if I buy something I'll feel better. Go to Starbucks and get a, big old whatever, and then I'll go, and then I'll do, and it's just like that agitated feeling kind of keeps us doing stuff. But one of the characteristics of deep calm, like people get in a meditation practice, I'm sure some of you in this room have had this and people online, there's a particular feeling when the Samadhi, which is the word we use and often now don't translate, it gets not so well translated as concentration, the word samadhi. Better definition or translation would be something like the stability of the mind and heart, or the unification of the mind and heart. The mind and heart coming together, being gathered, as opposed to being dissipated, fragmented. And one of the characteristics of having a lot of samadhi is that sense, like I could move my body, I could do something with my mind, but I don't have to. Because the mind and body is content to be. That's like a basic characteristic of samadhi, of meditative calm, is you feel subjectively, it's not something you make up, you sense it very clearly, viscerally even, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to move. I don't need to move my mind. I hear a sound. I could move my mind over there to think, what was that sound? But I don't have to. The mind has energy, it's bright. Samadhi is not a dull kind of tranquility, sleepiness. You know, meditative, calm, tranquility has energy, it's bright. But all that energy is in a, you could say, a potential state. Doesn't have to do anything. It's like, it has a kind of coherence or integrity, that energy. And the world, the buzz, the activity around us continues, of course, right? The world doesn't get changed because we've got samadhi, we've developed some calm, meditative calm. But the mind doesn't have a problem with how agitated, how much activity is moving around us. Even within our own mind, like thoughts may still be coming and going. But the samadhi, the wisdom of that calm, knows, yeah, just like thoughts are moving, but sounds are moving. So we're sensitive to mental activity and sounds and touches, you know, physical sensations and sights and smells and tastes. But the mind, in a sense, is withdrawn. It's like, right now, I don't need to do anything. Just like, you know, before you go to bed, you might check your apartment or check your home, make sure everything's the way it should be, you know, and then you go into your bedroom, you make sure everything's the way it should be, get under the covers, make sure everything's the way it should be. And then you feel relatively safe, like, I don't have to be a vigilant animal and keep checking, because I won't go to sleep if I do that. I just have to trust it's okay. And we do a little bit of that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the guided meditation, like it's really okay, now that I've decided to sit down at home or here at the center or joining a group online, now it's okay to not be that vigilant animal looking for threats. You know, I can put that down. And that's why, like, the beginning of calm is, in Buddhism we call it non-remorse. And I said a little bit about this at the beginning of the sit. Nobody, I'm imagining, online or here in the room, none of us have lived a life where we haven't caused harm or made mistakes or had bad stuff done to us, right? And so any one of us could have spent that 35 minutes regurgitating the mistakes I've made, the harm I've caused, you know, and feeling bad about that. Or the harm that was done to me and how unfair that was, right? And that kind of spinning, mental spinning, worrying, wanting revenge, wanting to make amends, right? But this isn't the time, right? Because this is the time we put aside for our meditation training. So we have to forgive ourselves that there's a lot of unfinished business in our lives when we sit down. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't think about those things, just not during your meditation time, right? It might be good to take a walk and to think about the harm we've caused and what we can do about that. Or even sometimes the harm that was done to us and what I need to do to kind of take care of myself. Do I need to say something to that person? Do I need to forgive them? Do I need to move to another town? Right? I mean, we have to figure these things out, all of us, in our situations. But we put it down when we're sitting. So we have to, it's not a small thing. All that unresolved pain and trauma, even for some people, significant trauma. But we decide that, you know what, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's safe enough for this 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever we have. It's safe enough to put that stuff down. Which means I have to live with what that all is, right? And so that first practice where we're just doing sustained present moment awareness, and for some of you skilled meditators, it may be just a minute or two, where you're remembering this capacity we have without using a meditation object, without trying to suppress thinking in any way. We're just realizing that this heart has the capacity to be radically present, sensitive to the totality of whatever's moving in the moment. And to keep I'm not going to use distraction to avoid feeling what I'm feeling. So really that first stage, we're just practicing non-distraction. What is the experience of non-distraction versus distraction? And the mind getting crystal clear about the difference between non-distraction and distraction. And it's said in the tradition, and we want to confirm this in our own practice, that the continuity of present moment awareness is purifying in itself. So we might think, okay, I got to bring this quality of mind to mind, I got to bring this quality of mind to mind. But all we actually have to do is sustain present moment awareness, and the Buddha says this, all the wholesome qualities start to gather. You'll notice, there's energy, there's interest, there's some lightness, some joy, there's some settledness. All these other qualities start to show up because the continuity of present moment awareness itself purifies the mind, the heart, of qualities that aren't helpful. And again, it's really good to check it out. We can just do even now for 30 seconds or so a little reflection, each of us, right? Without changing how you're sitting. Just recognize the present moment here. This is being known. And just do your best to sustain present moment awareness and notice the different qualities that you start to notice. We can even notice that like an uncontrived kindness just is there, a tenderness. Not that I'm trying to be kind or tender, but just that continuity of present moment awareness. It has a way of removing aversion from the mind. And the important thing is, this really will help us understand, well, what is the experience of sustained present moment awareness? Because, our mind, just the way our mind has developed probably through evolution, we often go from doing something to imitating doing something. It's just kind of the way our mind works. So I don't always have to keep it in mind. I need to be kind to my partner. And it's really sincere, and we're really figuring out how to do that. But then after a while, it kind of gets regulated. What is the word? Anyway, it kind of gets put into something that's on autopilot. It's okay, I got that. Be nice to my partner, and it's just sort of something that I don't have to have front and center in that kind of vivid, sensitive, dynamic sense. Like, how am I relating? Is it skillful? Is it helpful? Paying attention in that really clear way. And it's the same thing with awareness practice. We tend to have a moment where, okay, I'm present, and then the mind wrongly imagines that, okay, I got it. I can put it sort of there in the background because I got it. I'm present. But the very nature of sustained present moment awareness is this very fresh, dynamic quality. We can only be, I know it sounds silly to say this, but we can only be present in the present moment. So it doesn't matter if we were present 2 moments ago, right? It has to be renewed moment by moment by moment by moment. Sharon Salzberg, wonderful elder in our tradition, our kind of recent Western insight meditation lineage coming out of Theravada Buddhism, has this great line about the torment of continuity. Because initially it's a little unnerving. You know, when we get interested in present moment awareness, it's a little unnerving that it never ends. You know, our duty, our valuing the present moment, our commitment to the present moment, it doesn't stop. So if we're interested, we have to be interested in the next moment and the next moment. It has to keep getting to the top of our priority list. Now, eventually, that keeping it front and center becomes the nature, the habit of the mind. But it's so far from being there for most of us, right? That we have to, it starts with kind of a love affair, you know, where, oh yeah, mindfulness, it makes so much sense. But then that love affair doesn't last very long, you know. And then you see this, like here at the center, people come, they come for a while, it's like so impactful in their lives, so valuable. But it's hard to really sustain the interest. I always tell folks that we're all trying to make this, you know, make it, I guess we could call it a lifestyle of mindfulness. And you have to have a good friend. One of your best friends has to be as into it as you are. Because we're going against the stream. You know, the culture is really more about distraction. When we get together with our friends, we mostly talk about things to distract ourselves. Like, what great distractions have you found lately? You know, I'll tell you the ones. And we swap stories about, like, oh, you could get lost in this book for a while, or this television series, or this game, or this whatever. And how about those Minnesota Twins? Or, you know, it's just like one thing after another to absorb into, new drinks to drink and new restaurants to go to and the newer electric bikes that are out. And it's not that we have to avoid all those things, but all of it is limited. And what we clearly see is living a life where my heart's dependent on the new exciting thing is stressful. That's stressful. So let me just review the instructions because it's pretty simple. And just so you know, I always put my notes on the calendar event for this program. So if you look on our public calendar online and you look for the 10:30 Sunday morning program, you'll see a Google document, a link for a Google document. It'll have a link for my notes with these 4 steps that I've been talking about. So the first step is sustained present moment awareness. So here we're renouncing distraction. Like, that's the one enemy when we're doing that initial practice. And really, like I mentioned, getting crystal clear about what non-distraction is and what distraction is. And just to understand that our mind, you know, our thinking mind, I should say, is deceptive. Like, oh, this is non-distraction. And one of the real seductive things is thinking about our practice can look like we're sustaining present moment awareness. But thinking about practice isn't sustaining present moment awareness unless there's an awareness that thinking about practice is like this, right? In a sense, wisdom and awareness steps outside of being identified with the thoughts about practice and recognizes that's a present moment happening. Thinking about practice is happening. It feels like this, it looks like this. It's always a little awkward to talk about what we mean by mindful awareness. But one of the easier ways, and again, it won't be perfect, is awareness is aware, mindful awareness, wisdom and awareness, it's aware of what the mind is doing or what the mind is knowing. So there's consciousness, but we can be conscious of, in the sense of like driving home or brushing our teeth. But we can be conscious, so we're brushing our teeth correctly, but not aware of what we're doing, right? How many times have we been vividly present while brushing our teeth? It's rare, right? The mind is always somewhere else. So to be aware, that moving and that taste and those sensations and the aversion to brushing our teeth, whatever it is for each of us, right? To be mindfully aware that it's like this now, when it's happening in the moment-to-moment sense of, now it's like this, now it's like this. That's pretty rare. So we're recognizing what the conscious mind is doing and knowing. It's like we're realizing that the mind naturally has this capacity to have a mirror, and that mirror, all it does is it reflects back what the conscious mind is conscious of and doing. That's why you can drop in, if it's helpful, you can just see, you can drop in the question, well, what's the mind doing? Or what's the mind knowing? Just to get the mind back on track in terms of valuing present moment awareness. So like, what's the mind doing now? So you see how it can make us a little self-conscious initially, like, I'm not supposed to know what I'm doing. But when you say that out loud, of course, that's ridiculous. Like, why wouldn't we want to know what the mind is knowing and what the mind is doing? It's so helpful. That allows for the learning. It may initially seem awkward to be mindfully aware, but it really sets up, and like in Buddhist terms, we'd say it sets up this discerning of cause and effect, especially the sustaining of present moment awareness, because we see what the mind is doing, how the mind is relating, and we see what that's setting in motion, like stress or not, calm. So when we do Samadhi practice, a practice has more of an emphasis on concentration and calm, then we really start to see, and this is so important, is whatever calm we have, wherever we start, that's the calm we have. That's the stability of present moment awareness we have. A little, a lot, but we're all going to start somewhere when we sit down and begin our practice, right? Whatever we have, we use that calm we have to discern what are supporting causes and what are supports for distraction and agitation. Oh yeah, because we're seeing little off-ramps where I could think about that, I could worry about that, I could be concerned about this, but I don't have to. And all those little moments of restraint, like keeping things simple. And initially we just use the present moment as our anchor. Then we use the sense of space, the silent space of the present moment as an anchor. And then we really practice, and it's just a particular discovery we need to learn, that the mind can put down its dependence on the diversity of our sounds we're hearing and the sensations we're feeling in the body and the thoughts we're thinking in the mind. And that's what we learn by using a meditation anchor. It isn't the end of our practice, actually. And a lot of you know, because you've been practicing for a lot of times, we practice without a meditative anchor. Whatever's predominant in the moment, whether it's a thought or a sound or some sight, some visual experience, whatever it is, that becomes our anchor, or that's what the mind is aware of in that moment. But for a particular training, and that means all of us for periods of time, using a meditative anchor is powerful, because we're discovering that the mind, in a very direct, immediate way, can let go of the world. It's like our mind could be attending to so many things, but it's just noticing the touching of the air as the breath goes in and out. And there are many meditation anchors to use when we're doing the sustained, silent, focused, present moment awareness. So, tip of the nostrils, feeling the abdomen rise and fall is another classic one that you can use. Whole body sitting, so you're not focusing on particular sensations in the body, but feeling it as a totality, right? Just like in an orchestra, you can pick out the piccolos, or you can hear the whole thing together, right? But you can also do touch points. That's more like focusing on the piccolo. You know, okay, I'm going to feel my right thumb touching my thigh. Then I'm going to feel my left thumb touching my thigh. And then I'm going to feel my lips touching. Then I'm going to go back to my right thumb touching my thigh. So some people use touch points, and some people use hearing. And now that's there's other options, but we don't want too many options, because we'll just keep, once one gets tough, we'll go to the next one. That's not the way to practice. Shop around a little, and then stick with one, because you'll get good at it, and your mind will learn to like it. And if you don't know what to do, and you don't have any trauma around breathing, like some people who've had asthma, bringing a lot of awareness to the breath coming in and out can just be triggering, right? But if that's not you, and you don't know what to use, then just use your breath. And just find where the movement of your breath is clear for you, and use that physical experience. So obviously, touching at the nostrils, movement of the abdomen. There are others, ways to be aware of the breath, but those are two easy, common ways to choose from. And so we're learning like, oh, you know, my mind has this capacity to be interested, to choose to be interested. And remarkably, it can choose to be interested in something inherently ordinary. There is nothing special about that little movement as the belly rises and falls with the breath, or that simple touching as the air goes in the nostrils and out of the nostrils. It's just an ordinary physical sensation, right? Nothing mystical, sacred about that. What's truly amazing, though, is the mind dropping its attention to everything else. And then you could say that, you know, the fourth instruction is when we're doing that third instruction, sustained, silent, focused, present moment awareness on the meditation object. Then at some point, when you get some momentum, some continuity with the meditation object, then the inner pleasure of concentration, of the mind being really simple, becomes more predominant, more clear than the object that you're using itself. Whether you're using hearing, whole body awareness, being with the nostrils, feeling the breath going in and out of the nostrils, whatever you're using as your meditation object, the experience of the mind gathering, being collected, being unified, being stable, being simple in that not fragmented sense, that actually becomes the obvious predominant experience in that subjective sense for each of us. It's like right there. And everyone experiences it a little differently. Some people might even experience some light in the mind, or just a kind of a visceral, soft sense, felt sense. like an inner sense of velvet. But it's just the mind reflecting back to itself, oh, this is samadhi. This is good. This is healing. And we start to keep that in mind. So we're integrating the experience, the very direct, immediate experience of concentration with the concentration object. And eventually, the experience of concentration is more relevant, more the object, the anchor for our practice, than the breath or whatever we were using to get there. And the whole thing, you can see it's a movement from gross to more refined and subtle experience. Because for samadhi practice, concentration practice, which has a different emphasis than wisdom practice, which we often, those are the instructions you're here at the center, kind of a more balanced wisdom practice. There is some samadhi in that, but it's really, the orientation is seeing the underlying nature of experience. But of course, the proximate cause for seeing the underlying nature of experience is being calm. Because the underlying nature of experience stands out when the mind is settled. Oh, everything's moving, everything's changing. Nothing can be counted on to stay the same. So in that sense, it's unsatisfying and impersonal, right? That's the wisdom practice. But calm, as the Buddha says over and over again, developing calm, developing samadhi, is what supports the deepening of insight. So I just encourage everybody to work with those 4 instructions: sustaining present moment awareness, and you can do this all day long. And you can even do the sustaining silent present moment awareness in little moments. Like even in a conversation with someone where you're engaged, and then, like you're in a car together or at a meal together, and there's just a natural pause, then instead of that tendency of our minds to fill the space, just notice the silence of that. And even between words, between thoughts that are shared in the conversation, just take that opportunity. Oh, this is the space. This is the silent space of the present moment. And really let it hit home. Oh yeah. Because that's so much of really supports the deepening of wisdom, is to see that right here in the agitated, restless, wild dance of all of us and all of our tendencies getting triggered and triggering other tendencies, it's just like, it is this wild ride, being human, is this silent space that we uncover in meditation practice. But it isn't specific to meditation practice. Meditation practice is where we uncover it. And then our job is to realize it doesn't go anywhere, it's always here. And that's why we can have a lot of deepening of wisdom in daily life, because the mind knows how to keep going back to zero for a moment here, a moment there. It touches back into that quiet calm, and then in the next moment it's right back in the verbal dance we're having with another human being, at work, with a friend, whatever it might be. But it takes some practice to realize that samadhi isn't just about being on a Buddhist retreat for 10 days and having a good sit on day 7, and then wanting to get it back days 8 and 9 and 10, and then forever after. No, it's having it in enough times that wisdom grows to realize, oh, it's right here. Like that stillness, that silence, that radical simplicity. It's like, because I've been practicing a long time, and some of you have as well, we can sense it right now, even giving in the middle. This is my work life, I'm giving a talk. But just to have that Oh yeah, there it is. It's kind of interpenetrating the wildness of being a human being with a personality conditioned by my culture, an imperfect human being in all the ways I am. And there's something empty and still and simple here. And it really allows me to have a wiser and kinder relationship with everything that's moving. Otherwise, we tend to get attached and irritated by everything that's moving. It's like those are our two options. Either we like what's moving around us or it bugs us, right? But with calm and wisdom, we have another way to be relating to all that's moving, which is, oh, this is the nature. This is nature. This is how it is now. And we could call that like we're relating with equanimity instead of with fear and aversion and greed. Oh yeah, it can't be otherwise. Like, can you sense that now, even those of you at home, those here in the room, that kind of vastness and depth of that wisdom, that peace, that understand, you know what? Because it's not really about the intellectual part of this thought, like it can't be other than the way it is. It's more of a direct, visceral sensing that, oh yeah, this is how it is. And it kind of cools off any of our self-righteous sense. Oh, this is not okay. We need more certainty, in the election, or we need this, or we need that. No, sometimes it's like this. Sometimes the mind is like this, sometimes the body is like this, sometimes the world is like this, sometimes our friend is like this. So that calm really, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to do something, it just means that we can do whatever we're going to do from that place of stability and calm, instead of that place of reactivity and fear and greed. That's all. So I'll leave it here.